So that complicates our education, our lecturing. And as Naval said, we need to be molding more than just an academic person. We need to be molding someone who, who can actually make the right choices given a situation where they have to decide. Oh, yeah, Bronwyn has given us a whole essay. Thank you, Bronwyn. So Bronwyn says, I agree, while academic excellence remains important, modern education emphasizes growth, including social, emotional, practical skills. Yes. This shift recognizes the need to prepare students for the complexities of the modern world by equipping them with life skills, promoting cultural competence, and fostering excellence. My word, Bronwyn, did you swallow a manual? By embracing a broad approach, education aims to nurture well-rounded individuals capable of thriving in diverse environments and adapting to the demands. Yes. Yeah, no, that was a very good essay. You should copy and paste that into your assignment. But that is absolutely true. It is no longer just an academic thing, and we can't get away with just that. For various reasons. Just simply, well, first of all, the knowledge is so readily available, and the students or learners in a school, they're not getting these grounding at home. Okay, so if we kind of like agree or on the same page that values, ethics, and moral education should be part of our daily lecturing halls and rooms and what we bring across to our students, what do you think that should look like? So what are the things that we should consider in order to get this right? Yeah, from within any kind of like educational arena. So within your discipline, how do you think, if you take academics out of the equation and you are told or you are expected to develop the student morally and ethically, etc., what do you think that looks like? How are you going to go about doing that? Because obviously it's not something that is necessarily in our curriculum. It's not an assessment. It's not an outcome. It's, I think, an expected outcome maybe, but it's not documented anyway. So what would that look like? Oh, we have some more people that have joined us. Let's see. Sianda, welcome. And Isamela said, good evening. Welcome to you guys. So we're just really talking about how these days lecturing and education and teaching and all of that is no longer just about developing a person academically, but it's so much more than that, and for various reasons. I mean, besides the fact that it just incorporates the diversity that we're part of, and that we need to be educating our students, but it also has to do with things are just not happening like they used to at home and within communities. And so we as lecturers in education or in any other field, I think we find ourselves in a situation where we are more than just imparting knowledge and more than just developing an academically sound person. So my question is, if we now see the value and the necessity to include values, ethics, and moral education, what does that look like? Hey, Zach, welcome. And please feel free to you don't have to type, or you can just put your mic on and talk, or type. If you type fast like Bronwyn, you could just type. Does a whole essay in 2 minutes. But yeah, what do you think that would look like in your lecture room? No, you guys stunned. No more essays. I'm sure somebody's busy writing an essay somewhere. Somebody's going to say
I think I
something.
have
Miss
one.
Mello, yes. Oh,
I'm not.
thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm not sure if mine will sound okay, but wouldn't it be? I don't know. Back at reses, normally they have first years go through a whole orientation where they teach them values and ethics and uh, moral behavior on how to behave, how to conduct themselves in their studies and
Yes,
living with others and being a community with other residents and themselves with other people that live inside that residence. Wouldn't
that is a very, yes, absolutely. That would definitely be a way of incorporating that into education, tertiary education. Um, and I don't know if all the tertiary institutions do that, but that is amazing that they actually address those kind of issues, because I think a lot of the times people tend to kind of like sidestep around them. I suppose because yeah, it could be complex and messy, but yeah, that's actually good to hear. How do the rest of you think? I think that is one very good example of how we would actually incorporate this into tertiary education or in any learning environment. So in actually what you're saying, it has to be a component that is actually integrated either separately or in the curriculum somewhere. And I think that's a very good point. I'm going to on my next slide, if it would just show, yeah. So okay, yeah. So basically, this is just what having values and ethics, moral education would be. So it's, and I think it's, as Lisa Miller said, it's something that you just weave into what you're already doing. Um, and like you've, Bronwyn also said, and Naval also said, it's not about helping our students to excel academically, but also to contribute positively to society and to demonstrate ethical leadership. And I think that ethical leadership is such an important. Hi, Zach. Welcome. So yes, policy as well. The question is, Zach, is we have now spoken about values and ethics and moral education and how there is such a need for that. And the question was how, if we realize the need for it, how then do we incorporate it into our daily lecturing? And so Lisa Miller was saying that at her university, the first years those are going to raise, I think you said, they have a specific program where they actually address ethics and moral values, etc., and values. Um, so yeah, and it's developing and demonstrating or modeling ethical leadership for our students. I think is such a crucial thing, especially in today's kind of like society where everybody's just out for themselves, and they don't really pay much attention to whether something's ethically right or wrong. Quickly. So the next slide, is these are just kind of thoughts and ideas, like how do we achieve this. So we would first of all have to for ourselves know what our core values. And we would have to, and as and Lisa Miller and everybody is saying, we'd have to incorporate that into our teaching. We ourselves would have to model those ethics and values. So we wouldn't be able, it's not something that you're going to teach. You're going to have to model those things yourself. And I think, create moments or learning or experiential learning within your lecture rooms or classrooms where you could either have scenarios and discuss the ethically correct thing to do or the morally correct thing to do, or you know, just have opportunities where the students themselves could realize, but hang on, this is an ethical sort of a dilemma or something that I need to consider. And then I think if we really want to achieve good moral education, I think we would need to have a lot of time set aside for reflection and dialogue, having those brave conversations, having those discussions where there is going to be a lot of difference and different perspective, different opinions, different way of viewing things, and having those discussions so that students can see there are other viewpoints and there are other perspectives, and neither one is necessarily better or more right than the other, and that moral and ethical decision making is not black and white. Sometimes, you know, we like to think it is, and I think a lot of us were raised that, you know, wrong is wrong and right is right. But I think if you really were to think about it, there's a lot of gray in that. So yeah, what anything else? What do you guys think about this? And how else, is there anything else we can add to how we would achieve it, and why do we want to achieve this?
The best way to implement or moral values in any institution, be it court or just social settings, would be to lead by example. Because these days we have a lot of people that just talk about ethics and morals. Like you'll have orientations and you'll have many different different speeches, and etc. etc. But at the end of the speech, everybody walks home. They don't remember a single thing. But when you see somebody picking up a piece of paper or opening the door, or when they have opportunity to lie, they choose to tell the truth, even though it does not reflect well on pride. When you see people do that over and over again, then automatically you will start to remember their actions.
You have made an incredibly valuable point there. Sorry, are you still talking? I don't know if it's just
no,
me.
ma'am, I'm not talking. Thank
there
you.
you are.
That's all I wanted to say.
Sorry, I thought maybe there was a loss in sound there. But you're quite right. You are quite right, Kasadi. You need to, if we are not modeling that behavior, I mean, and we all know that from when I don't know, those of you who have children, but when they're little, they definitely don't do what you tell them to do. But if you've been modeling that behavior, then they will learn that as well. I don't know if any of you have seen The Octopus Teacher, that South African made movie, which is based on a true kind of like drama about, yeah, it's, I mean, and that's an octopus, you know, totally just learning from what the diver was demonstrating. And that is exactly how human beings are. We do tend to learn from example as opposed to just from being told. Naval saying, I teach my students to do the right thing. So in modeling the behaviors, we try and teach them. If my students are late with their assignments, they will try and negotiate no deduction. I will say to them that as per policy, I have to deduct unless there's a valid reason, and I will go ahead and deduct. I will also add that since I teach you guys to do the right thing, I also have to do the right thing anyway. This helps them to adhere to deadlines when they reach the, yes, perfect. And I know, I mean, it's you guys are great, but I'm sure that you're lecturing younger people and they don't always get that, you know, they don't always get that. They battle with the consequences of not doing the right thing. They kind of think they above that. But yeah, I think I have to agree with Kasari that our strongest weapon here is really the way we conduct ourselves. And as Naval also said, if we have to remain consistent and we have to be that example. If we have a look at, I don't know why my laptop is so slow tonight, but yeah, I just put together some examples of values, and the reason why I did this because sometimes we lose track of what values are and we lose track of what is important for us because you get so caught up in your lecturing and in deadlines and pressure and everything else that you kind of forget about your own values and the ones that you want not only yourself but your students to ascribe to you. And so sometimes it's just nice just to be reminded of what good values are. So you can come back to that at a later stage. And then the second part of tonight is we're going to talk about a pedagogy of care. Now, again, this is something I wouldn't say it's new. I think a pedagogy of care is always there in the background of any educational situation. But I think in recent times it has just become a lot more visible not visible, but a lot more required or intentional, I should rather say, because of there's just so much anxiety out there amongst the students. I don't know if you experience that as well, and there's so much disconnectedness, you know, between reality and their kind of like experiences. It just seems, I don't know, they're going through the motions and they just all seem to really need a lot more than just that academic support or growth that you're providing. So if we talk about a pedagogy of care and you think about your own lecturing situation in your classroom, in your lecturing room, what would that look like? What would you ascribe to? What would be the important things that you would need to focus on if you wanted to say, look, I have a pedagogy of care. I'm that kind of person. And obviously, I mean, this is completely in contrast with our more traditional educational approaches that I mean, as we said, that solely focus on academic outcomes and standardized testing, etc., etc. So the pedagogy of care, yeah, that's hard work, I think, because you've got to give of yourself. It's not just, you don't just walk in and tick the box, cover the curriculum. You've got to give of yourself. So again, in your situation, what would that look like? If you were to say, I do practice a pedagogy of care, what does that practically look like? And is it important to you? I mean, it might not be important to you. No?
Ma'am,
Yes?
pedagogy, okay. What I'll say is, in my profession, I think it works with certain individuals. Especially, the thing is, you have to first understand the types of people you're working with. For example, if I'm working with the foundation phase, the little kids, then the pedagogy of care, the level of care I assert has to be higher, because they're still sensitive and they need more care. And then when I'm dealing with the older ones now, for example, university students, I feel like they need less care because they're mature. So I believe that the level of care used on the older ones should be less than the lesser ones. For example, if you're teaching a primary school or a high school where these people are still younger and are still they still they're still wild, and they
Oh, he disappeared there now for a bit. Sorry, I'm not too sure if you're still talking. Your sound comes and goes, so I'm not 100% sure if you're still talking, but I hear what you were saying, that you feel that the younger the child, the more pedagogy of care is needed. I just want to quickly see here what Bronwyn has said. In a construction management class, practicing pedagogy of care involves integrating empathy, support, and understanding into the teaching learning process. This could start by acknowledging the diverse backgrounds, experiences, and learning styles of students within the field. I try to create a supportive environment where students feel comfortable expressing themselves. Asking questions and seeking help when needed. Yes, Bronwyn, that is definitely pretty much a pedagogy of care in a nutshell. Zach says emotional intelligence is vital to better understanding and respond to students' emotional psychological needs. Okay, so for you, pedagogy of care would be to look at their emotional and psychological needs, not so much their physical needs. Bronwyn says development of students, nurturing their professional skills while also tending to their emotional, social needs within the industry. Nicole says, I teach my students time management in the hope that it will lessen pressure of due dates and juggling all their modules. My last lesson of the month is called a calm down session. in the session, I will do things like how to identify stress, how to avoid burnout, etc. Okay, and that's definitely pedagogy of care, allowing them to share concerns and worries. Zach also said actively promote available mental health resources. Yes. Inform students about counseling service. Yes, you are all right. You've all pretty much touched on all the basic, I do too, actually. You've all touched on all the basic, I would say, components, if we can call it components, of a pedagogy of care. You've spoken about emotional support. You don't think anyone mentioned building relationships anywhere. I think Kasadi did hint at it when he spoke about the younger children. So building relationships, meaningful relationships with your students. Sometimes just giving them individual attention. Sometimes they just need to know that, that you're there and that you remember they had, I don't know, a wedding on over the weekend or something, and you ask them how it was. That's also, sometimes that actually goes a far way. And then, as somebody did mention, having an inclusive environment, encouraging self-care. So yeah, encouraging them to actually be able to care for themselves, that it's not just, they mustn't rely on other people, but that they need to prioritize their mental and emotional well-being. And then, yeah, cultivating empathy, we've spoken about that. Reflection, we've spoken about. And yeah, holistic development is obviously also part of the pedagogy of care. Yeah, supporting resilience and coping skills. So I think you've basically touched on all of those in all your kind of opinions and viewpoints. So thank you for that. I actually just want to come back to what Kasadi said, because I find that quite interesting, and I would like to know what the rest of you think. He was saying that a pedagogy of care is more intense with the younger the child. So I was just wondering what the rest of you thought of that statement. Ismailo, you say you think it differs with the type of students you might have in your class. Yeah, I agree. I think essentially, I completely understand what he's getting at. Naval says, I respectfully disagree. The younger the child, the easier to mold when trying to mold adults with already lived experience. You probably say lived experience. It is harder. Yeah, I think that would depend on what your definition of pedagogy of care is. If it's a physical caring component, protection, and seeing to physical needs, then I do agree with Kasadi, and I do agree that I think it is more hectic or more intense the younger the child. But I think if we define pedagogy of care as broader than that, and we have a look at emotional support, and I mean, as Lisa Miller says, you might have really students in your class who really suffer from intense anxiety, although you could have that in school as well. So yeah, I think that's a difficult one. I think it really depends on how you define a pedagogy of care. I think, although, I look at the students on our campus and I think to myself, there's still so many of them that just want a shoulder to cry on, or just want someone to give them a hug and say it's going to be okay. It's it's almost like they got stuck in that phase when they were younger and haven't, they I don't know, they can't self-soothe themselves almost, like. But yeah, I think you all have very valid points, and I think it is true on either side. Um, I think, yeah, as you all say, it depends on your definition and it depends on the students you have in your class. And then lastly, yeah, that's just a bit of a summary as to what pedagogy of care is all about. Yeah, I think I was going to spend a lot of, well, most of this evening's time again just on breakaway groups and unpacking what these things actually mean for each of you, because yeah, I mean, you're all in different, you're lecturing different modules, your students, are different demographically, so this is not going to be the same for everyone. But yeah, any other thing you'd like to just maybe raise or point out, or any more opinion, viewpoints that you feel around this whole topic of we're not just educating academically anymore. I think, I don't know, if I look at my day, I am mostly busy with running around seeing to the emotional needs of my students, to be very honest. Lisa Mello, I teach different ages of students, and I've also taught victims of abuse, sure, and both are hard to mold. Yes, I agree. With younger children, it becomes more difficult when they have special needs, and you guys are all hitting the right. You're saying the right things. I mean, it's so dependent on who and what. Sure, teaching victims of abuse, that must be quite. Yeah, sure. That can't be very easy. And it's just so more and more prevalent, and I think that's for me the hard part of being in education. I don't know if it's just that we were blinded to it all, years ago, and it was just not kind of like put out there. But it just seems like every second student has major issues and really real struggles. So yeah, it's heartbreaking actually. But I know we can't look at that. We need to look past that. I mean, there is hope, and I think with great educators, I think, well, I don't think, I know we can make a difference in these children's lives. I believe you, Lisa Mello. I mean, how there must have been so many times um, where you must have felt. You see, I would want to fix it, and I think that should be really that wouldn't work, because you can't fix it. You can just be there and help them to find their own path ahead, and they develop their own, whatever they have inside them to actually cope. Sure. Well, Dr. Shania, how can we offer a pedagogy of care to students who repeat a module more than once and become disheartened? Oh, yeah, no. Oh, goodness. I think that is also a very, very real issue. And it's disheartening when it's because there's either a language barrier or they just don't have the support at home, or it's just, yeah, there's just so many gaps for so many students. And then, as you say, they just become so disheartened. Oh, I don't know. Then a pedagogy of care, I suppose, would to be literally, oh, but how? We look working with so many students every day, but to maybe find another student to literally walk walk the path with that student, and sure, I don't know, hey, that's hard. That's really hard, Naval, when you can see the potential, but you just know that there's just some connection not being made. That is very hard. See, that's what makes our job difficult, because we don't just look at them as numbers. We and just thinking about that, how would you say a pedagogy of care compares? I don't know if you all yeah, well, there could be something else going on that hasn't been diagnosed. And I mean, for many of these students, where do they go? I mean, it's knowledge and it's the financial side of things. But do you think, just to throw it out there, do you think, I don't know who all of you are at private institutions and who of you are at public, but do you think there's a difference between the care that students get at a public university compared to the care they get at a private university? And if you think there is a difference, is it a positive or a negative difference? Yeah, I agree. I also think private is a completely different story. I haven't had much experience as a lecturer in public, very little, but obviously attended a public university. And now lecturing at a private institution, it's almost like it's like day and night different in terms of student experience. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So is it a good thing to be able to, because of the numbers and there aren't that many students, but is it a good thing to be so involved in their holistic development as opposed to the student at a public university who is just a number and must just get on with it? I don't know. What do you think? Pierce Rose. That's really funny, Mr. Miller. Naval says it's draining being involved holistically with your students, but I just can't bat it. Yeah, and I think I'm with you there, Naval. It is draining. It is hard work, making that kind of like investment in your students. But yes, I don't think I would have it any other way either, because for some of them, it's the only stability they have. It's the only healthy input they're getting. So if that's what we need to do, then I suppose that's what we need to do. I suppose at the end of the day, and I think Bronwyn's alluded to that at the beginning, is that it is our responsibility to develop these students into holistic, well-functioning members of society. And yeah, we need to embrace that and to take the responsibilities that go with that. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. So you're juggling what you have to do, curriculum content, with these intense emotional needs that some of them have. But okay, that kind of brings me to the end of what I wanted to discuss with you this evening. The floor is now yours. If there's any other comments or questions that you have, or anything else related to anything else that you feel you need to bring to the table. No? Are you all good? Or are we going to call it a night? All good, Zach. Thank you. Just need to type yes. Awesome. Awesome. Yes, please. If you can submit earlier, I will be very grateful. That means I can start my marking earlier. Noel says, I had a student asking me about advice on an abortion. Oh, man. And I just found out that I myself was pregnant a few days before. So I looked at my excitement compared to her fear. And it was so sad. Oh, man. You know, Noel, I don't know. This is so real, and so, as you said, is heartbreaking. And yeah, I wouldn't want to be a student counselor, that is for sure. I think the heartache that they must deal with, I would just want to go in and fix everyone. But thank you for everything this evening, everyone, and I really do wish you well for your last stretch of your assignment. And thank you so much for attending tonight. I know that I know you're busy. So let me say good night and goodbye, and have a good evening further, good week. And I will be chatting to you again in about 2 weeks' time.